What's up gamers, today we're going to be talking about the top 5 best characters in Genshin Impact. If you want to 36 star the Abyss, I suggest trying to get or build all these characters on this list. Also, if you want to know who the top 5 best 5 star and 4 star characters are in Genshin Impact, I made 2 separate videos about them, so make sure to go check it out. So since I hate long intros, and I know you probably do too, let's get straight into the video. In no particular order, we have one of the best and FTP friendly teams in Genshin Impact, the National Team. Now, I'm sure that you guys can think of multiple different types of national teams, but the national team I'm actually going to be focusing on is the Raiden National. It consists of Xiangling, Xingqiu, and Bennett. Raiden's job of this team is simple. She batteries and acts as the main DPS. She's supported mainly by Bennett, but also by Xiangling and Xingqiu, because with Xiangling's Pyronado, Xingqiu's Rain Swords, and Raiden's Burst, you can proc so many different reactions. Now I know some people just love Dendro reactions and only that, but in this team you can have as many as 3 different reactions just flying everywhere. Like Vaporize. This happens when Xingqiu vaporizes Xiangling's Burst, and Electro Charge happens when Raiden's off-field and on-field Electro fuses with Xingqiu's Rain Swords. And Overload happens with all the Pyro Xiangling applies, and the amount of off-field and on-field Electro Raiden applies as well. In this team, energy will definitely not be an issue, because 3 of these characters are most likely going to want to be run on emblem sets. And well, of course, Raiden's going to be a battery for the team, so that makes energy really easy. This team is also very FTP friendly, because Bennett was given for free in an event, so has Xingqiu, and Xiangling is a free character in Spiral Abyss. Raiden doesn't have to be your only DPS, because you can run these 3 supports with other main DPS characters and they'll still work. This just goes to show how powerful national teams are. But let's move on to another great team in Genshin Impact, the Hyperbloom team. Guys, there are so many different types of Hyperbloom teams in Genshin Impact, so don't come at me if I don't mention your favorite one. This section has so many different characters that can replace one another, and that leads to different playstyles, so I'm here to just give the general idea. Anyway, in most Hyperbloom teams, you need a Dendro character, Electro character, a Hydro character, and a Flexible character. Usually this would be another Hydro unit or an Anemo unit. I usually just go for Jean or Kazuha. For the Dendro character, the most comfortable choice to go for is Nahida, because she applies a lot of Dendro, but Traveler works as well. Now for the Electro character. Raiden applies the most off-field Electro, and she makes it very easy to turn the Dendro cores into Hyperblooms, and this is because of her elemental skill. But the only drawback with Raiden is that she doesn't provide a lot more than that. So I see people using Kuki Shinobu because she applies a decent amount of Electro, and I see people using Fischl who applies a lot of Electro and does good damage. Then for the best Hydro character, Xingqiu is your best bet because of the amount of Hydro he applies. For the flex slot, if you want more Hydro, you can use Yelan so you can have double Hydro and a lot of damage. You can use Kazuha if you want grouping, and he can also support your team. Or Jean if you need healing and replace Kuki Shinobu with a different Electro. But if you are going to run Kuki, then you're most likely going to use Kazuha or Yelan. There's so many different options for this team comp, but it does so much damage and is worth it to build. It's great for situations where there are a lot of enemies, and it's also good for single target boss fights. You can run an expensive version of it and a free version of it, and you will see almost similar outcomes, and that's why I love playing this team. Let's move into another great team comp. This would be Bloom teams. When playing Bloom teams, there's one thing you need to pay close attention to, and it's if you're killing the enemy and not yourself. This is because Blooms actually explode with a decent AoE, and when they explode, the impact can actually kill you, so it's vital to have a healer in your team. Speaking of your team, a typical Bloom team would have Nahida as the main DPS, a Hydro healer or another Dendro applier, and 2 other Hydro characters. Just like Hyperbloom, there's a lot of diversity with Bloom teams, and it would take me forever to name them all. But with this in mind, I want you to understand that most Bloom teams have Nilou, Kokomi, Nahida, and another Dendro support like Traveler. Nahida is there to be an on-field main DPS and apply a lot of Dendro with her skill. Nilou is just there to do her skills and her ult and be switched out of. Kokomi heals and applies her off-field Hydro, and if you need to do her burst, you can. The Dendro support is there to add more Dendro or to add Dendro and heal. Now to some people this could be too expensive, so you should know that even this makeshift Bloom team can dish out so much damage, and it can be really fun to play. Now moving out of the Dendro area, we have Melt/Freeze teams. I'm putting both Melt and Freeze teams as one category since most characters that you can run in Melt teams can be run in Freeze teams, and Cryo as an element is kind of just underwhelming. You can probably think of Dendro and Cryo related teams, but this is a top 5 best team comps in Genshin Impact video, so the Dendro characters would probably fit better in Dendro teams stated before. You can come at me in the comment section and write a whole essay on why you don't agree with me if you want. So Melt teams in my opinion opinion, are still up there as one of the best teams in Genshin Impact. With melt teams, there's so many ways to play them, and one of the best melt teams in the game is a Wriothesley melt team, which consists of Wriothesley, Bennett, Xiangling, and Zhongli. You could replace Wriothesley with Ganyu, or you could replace Ganyu with Ayaka, and if doing that, you can replace Zhongli with Kazuha. There's so many different ways you can play melt team comps, but I personally play melt Ayaka because I don't have Ganyu or Wriothesley. This team is so fun and very easy to play. You can do a lot of damage, and it's actually pretty satisfying with Ayaka's burst because it hits so hard. Melting hits can be pretty simple because Kazuha's burst can apply a lot of pyro if swirled with pyro, and Xiangling's burst does a lot of damage and applies a lot of pyro. This Ayaka team in specific would require you to take your Ayaka off Blizzard Share because I know most of you guys are running her in a freeze team. But with Ganyu or Wriothesley, you wouldn't need to switch out of Blizzard Share. Speaking of Blizzard Share, freeze teams are still popular. I personally used Ayaka Freeze and the Hyper Bloom team to clear the Spiral Abyss all the time, and the freeze team still slams. What's great about freeze teams is that most of the time the enemy is frozen for a few seconds, and because of this they aren't really attacking you, so you don't take a lot of damage. In my opinion, Ayaka Freeze is the best freeze team in the entire game, so I would recommend playing Ayaka Freeze if you're planning on playing freeze teams. The good thing about this team is that it's very free to play friendly. The typical free to play Ayaka Freeze team would be Ayaka, Xingqiu, Sucrose, and Diona. But if you're a lucky free to play, Sucrose can be replaced by Kazuha for greater buffs and much better crowd control. Xingqiu applies a good amount of Hydro, and Diona can be a battery for Ayaka, shield the team, and provide healing. For whales, the Ayaka Freeze team is typically all 5 stars. Ayaka is the main DPS, Kokomi is the Hydro applier, Kazuha for crowd control and buffs, and Shenhe for even more buffs. Ayaka Freeze teams are just so satisfying to play, and so I would definitely advise playing it. Last but not least, I've got yet another Dendro related team, the Aggravate teams. Aggravate teams typically just consist of Dendro and Electro characters. I love catching Aggravate, but I don't have her, so of course we're bringing back the one and only Raiden Shogun. And this team in specific is using Raiden as the main DPS. She applies a lot of consistent Electro with her E, Nahida as the Dendro applier for obvious reasons, Kuki is another Electro applier because she heals and applies a decent amount of Electro, but she's mainly there for healing. Then there's Kazuha, who will buff up the entire team. Of course, with Dendro teams there are many other main DPS options, and some are way better fitting than Raiden, like Sino and Keqing. But this team does so much damage just like all the other teams, and there's actually nothing special about Aggravate teams. You apply Dendro and you apply Electro and bash the enemy with all your might. They shine in both single target and AoE situations because Kazuha is almost vital to have in this team. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you liked the video. Please like and subscribe because it helps me a lot because I'm just a small creator. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.